everybody. Today I am here with Miss Laura Kidwell Boyd. We are doing our first monthly Titus talk where we are going to talk to a woman within the church and just get some advice and have her answer some questions you guys have. So, with that, Miss Laura, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, Jenna. My name's Laura Boyd, and I'm married to Brooks Boyd. He's a preacher and an elder, and we've raised four children, three daughters and a son. We have 10 grandchildren and a bonus granddaughter, and we stay very, very busy in the church. I'm also a
Nice,
retired
nice.
nurse, so
Oh, wow, wow, I love that. So let's just dive right into these questions. In your opinion, what is the most challenging thing about creating long-lasting relationships in the church?
when I read this question, the first thing that came to my mind was Acts 2 and the fact that the early Christians were together every day. And I actually believe that that is the biggest reason that we're not closer to our church families because we don't spend enough time with them. You know, we're so busy in our lives and everything, and we may only see them at the worship services, and then you only speak to a few at a time. So I think we need to make the effort, and spend more time outside of worship, getting to know each other. You know, stay after services. Don't just run off. And planned activities. We used to go to Jack's every Sunday night with a group of about 12 to 20. And you really get to know people, outside of the church building. So that helps. And, make your best friends of the church group. Make them Christians too. So,
Nice, I love that. Very practical advice. Now, what advice would you give to young single women who desire to be married someday?
oh, me. The first piece of advice is be sure that you're the right kind of girl. As a Christian, you want to be sure that you have your faith that's yours, that you're strong in your faith, and you've got an idea of the Christian young man you want. The first thing that I remember when I was in college and I took marriage into family class, and we had to make a list of things we were looking for. And I remember number one in my list was somebody that will help me go to heaven, not make it harder to go to heaven. So that's very, very important. And then, of course, you got to go where the Christian guys are because God's not going to bring him to your doorstep. Probably not.
Yes.
So, go to lectureships, go to Christian camps, go to Christian college activities, anything where there's going to be a group of Christian young men, and look around. Just look around, because
Yeah.
that's where. I mean, if you're waiting on him to come, it's probably not going to be the FedEx guy. I mean, it's just not. So, and and
Darn.
also, and don't settle. Don't get to feeling like I'm not going to get anybody else. I'm going to just marry this one, because actually living alone is better than a bad marriage. So don't settle.
Nice, nice. Now, which book of the Bible or character spoke to you most during a challenging time in your life?
I like the book of Psalms because of all that David went through, and he had people trying to kill him, and he had all kinds of things that happened to him. And I like to read the way that he petitioned God for help during those times of trouble. And then also in Genesis 50 verse 2, there's a 20, I'm sorry, 50 verse 20, where Joseph says to his brothers, "You meant it for harm, but God meant it for good," when he ended up, in Egypt. So there's times when we've been done wrong, maybe by people that we thought were our friends, and sometimes it's done on purpose, sometimes not. But in my life, when I've had things happen that I felt like they were trying to hurt me or my family, God worked it out, and He will. He's promised He will. So He's always taking care of us, and that's been a verse that I've leaned on.
Nice, I love that. That's such a good reminder to have. Now, how can women be more intentional in leading Bible classes and studies?
Well, you see me, I'm looking over here at my notes, so for those that don't know. For one thing, you need to learn how to teach. And you can start by being a teacher's helper, in a Sunday school class. But Hebrews 5:12 says there comes a time when we should all be teachers. And we should teach other people so that they can teach other people. That's 2 Timothy 2:2. So teaching should come to every Christian in some form, women included. And so do your own personal study. Be sure that you know the truth. We should at least know what we did to become a Christian. We should be able to tell that to someone with scriptures. And then make talking about scriptural things natural. You know how we'll talk about going to the mall or what we had for lunch and all that kind of stuff. Let's make talking about God and the church and the Bible natural, so that they'll ask you questions then, and that you've got an open door. When someone ask you a Bible question, you can say, can we get together tomorrow night and have a study? And I'll have the answer for you then. And, possibly you've got a study. I don't know if that's the kind of study you've got in mind, but that, and also having Bible tracts and things you can hand out to people. Invite people to come to worship, and then afterwards ask them, say, did you have any questions you wanted to ask, about our worship? Because, everybody knows we're strange, I wouldn't say that part, but, they're probably thinking, what was that Lord's Supper thing all about, and how come y'all don't have a piano? So those are ways to open up. Also, teach yourself or get somebody to help you learn an effective Bible study, like Back to the Bible is very simple, very good. It comes from house to house, heart to heart. Also, the open Bible study method is it's excellent. That's one that my husband and I use. And it's very good. Also, it's a little more in-depth, a little more longer lessons. But and if you've got a Christian friend, y'all get together and role play. Teach each other. Because the more you practice and the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get with it. Is that okay?
I feel like I need to be taking notes right now. Yes, there's so much practical advice here. Thank you. Well,
I tend to be a practical person.
I love it. I love it. Well, how can young women balance the mental, physical, and spiritual demands of rearing young children and being godly wives?
Well, first thing I put here in my notes was to stay in the moment. Don't wish your life away. And this was something I found myself doing when all 4 children were young, thinking they're never going to grow up. I'm going to always be here with these kids under my feet and the laundry piling up. And, you think, I wish. Don't do that. Try to enjoy your children at the stage they're in and their innocence, and know that they really will grow up, and they will do it quicker than you can imagine. You need to be sure that you're making time for your husband when these children come along, because he doesn't need to feel like you've, forgotten that he exists just because you've now got children. So nurture your relationship, and it'll have to be intentional, because it's not going to just, free time's not going to drop in your lap for probably 20 plus years. So you have to plan that. Have a date night, even if it's sitting on the sofa and eating a pizza after the kids go to bed. Do something with just the two of you. Remember, if you work outside the home, that the home is still your responsibility. So you've got 2 jobs. You've got 3 jobs, 4 if you count being a wife. So being a wife, being a mother, being a homekeeper, and whatever other job you may have, that's a lot. I'm not saying that you have to do everything, but it's up to you to make sure it gets done. So, delegate, get some help, whatever. Rest when you can. Try to eat healthy. Don't fret the small stuff. We all tend to do that. And then in today's society, there's all this thing about me first. I got to take care of me first. I just really didn't see that in Jesus. I see that he always put others first. So know that when you're taking care of your children in your home and your husband, that God is pleased. And that's where he's put you at this time in your life, and look at it as a blessing.
Nice. I love that. can families make their home and routine more Christ-centered?
Well, we know Matthew 6:33 says to put the kingdom first, and that means when you're at home also. So the number one thing is never miss worship, unless, of course, sickness. You can't help that. But we don't stay home with our children because they've got a bedtime at 7 o'clock. We don't do that. We don't miss for homework. We don't miss for school. We don't miss for... When we say the church comes first, we have to really, really show our children that we understand first. Because if we don't, they catch on real quickly that it's really not that important. And when they grow up, it won't be important at all to them. So that would be the first thing. Say things in everyday situations about God, like God would want us to go over here and help the neighbor, or God would like it if we go and check on Sister so-and-so, or we're going to make food to take to somebody because God wants us to help other people. You know, just talk to your children about God all day long. You can, and teach them to pray. Let them hear you pray for them. That'll make a big impact on them. Their little prayers are so innocent and yet sometimes can be so meaningful. And listening to your children pray is a good thing. Sing Bible songs. Have a family devotional period every day. It doesn't have to be but 5 or 10 minutes, but every day have some kind of Bible devotional. And then the last thing I had here is to be very careful of other things that influence your children. The TV, screen time, any kind of screen times. Their friends at school, know who those friends are and who you really don't want them to be with. Keep them off the computer. And on a positive note, send them to Bible camp, a good, sound Christian Bible camp. And every Bible activity, church activity, that VBS, things like that, make sure that they're there. And that will help. That will mean a lot to them as they grow older.
Do you have any tips on how to be a good steward of your finances?
Yes, I learned the hard way. We didn't know about Dave Ramsey. We didn't know about Dave Ramsey. I wish everybody had to take his course in high school because he really has some very, very good practical advice. And one thing, too, is to, no matter how little you make, every payday put something in your savings account. Now, that's after you take out your contribution to God. He comes first, always. But then you want to put something in your savings and have a budget. And this is where the Dave Ramsey course comes in with the envelopes. We did the envelopes. And it really, if you've only got a certain amount of money that you can spend for eating out, and when it's done, it's done, that really helps you to not overspend in certain areas. Be sure that we're not buying our wants before we pay for our needs. And I'm afraid that our society has really, taken that on as I'm going to go get my hair and my nails done and get me a new phone, and then I'm going to go ask somebody to pay my electric bill. We don't want to be that way. As Christians, we are commanded to be good stewards, and that means take care of your needs first. Forget trying to impress other people. And this is hard. As a preacher's wife, my daddy was a preacher too, but the thing is, you want to, when people say, hey, let's go out and eat, and you want to go, and you feel like you should go if you're the preacher's family, but sometimes we have to say no and forget about impressing people. In fact, I'm more impressed with people who say, no, we can't go this week. That's not in our budget. And then you're standing there thinking, buddy, I wish I was that strong. We're impressed with people who are self-controlled. So be one of those people. Don't be embarrassed to shop at the thrift stores and to buy clothes that are not name brand clothes. You can still get good things. We found a discount grocery store here. We call it a used food store, but it's not. It's more of a scratch and dent kind of grocery, but you can find some good deals in there. So, and all these little things will add up and help you to be a good steward.
Nice. I love that. What practical advice would you give young women who are trying to dress their age but still dress modestly?
Okay, 1 Timothy 2, verses 9 and 10. Paul tells Timothy to tell the women, and he's speaking to Christians here, that they are to dress in a manner that would profess godliness. And he says, tell them to dress modestly. So we've gotten away from understanding what modesty means, and that's why we're having a problem with it, because people think modest just means whatever I'm comfortable in. But this is a command from God, and he wouldn't command us to do something and then say, I hope you can figure out what that word means. He does not do us that way. So we go back to the Old Testament. In Romans 15:4, it was written for our learning. Well, back in the book of Genesis, when God clothed Adam and Eve, he actually made these clothes for them. And he made them tunics. Now, you've got to go back and look up the Hebrew word for tunic, and it's kathoneth. And you can Google that. It doesn't have to be a religious book. Just Google, Hebrew word for tunic, and you'll get this. And it was a garment that went from their shoulders all the way down to their knees. It completely covered their chest area, their midsection, and all of their thighs, all the way to their knees. So once we understand what God expects as a minimum for being modest, now we can try to find our clothes. And that can be a challenge, and I understand that. But there are some places where you can get some modest clothes. I know there's some ladies called the Pearly Peacock. Have you heard of them? They have a clothing line of modest clothing. Yeah, you can. They're on Facebook, and let me see here. I've got another one. The Pearly Peacock, and also the Confidence Act with Bree Neighbors. She's just started that, and Bree is like 20, 21 years old. She started her own clothing line of modest clothing, and they're pretty clothes. They're pretty clothes, and so if you want modest clothes, you can find them, but you have to hunt for them. But we want to be sure that we're more concerned with pleasing God than we are with pleasing ourselves or our friends when it comes to our clothing. And when we know that God's pleased with us, we don't really care so much whether we're fitting in with the fashion of the day. Also, WVBS, the World Video Bible School, has some good information on modesty. Don Blackwell's got an excellent video you can watch. There's other things online. Church of Christ Articles.com/modesty's got a very, very in-depth article if you want to look into that more. But we have to understand that God said if you disobey me in one command, it's like you've disobeyed the whole law, and that would include our modesty. So I very, very much stress modesty to our young ladies because God's watching.
Yeah, it's definitely a very important topic for us to discuss nowadays. And this next question kind of goes along with that. Do you have any advice for raising daughters in a hypersexual culture that likes to sexualize women's bodies?
Right, exactly. And it does go in with the modesty thing, because you'll notice that the advertisers and the game shows and just all kinds of things, if you look at the type of clothing that these women have on, it would fall under the description of what the Bible would call a harlot. And when I look at that, I think, why do we see some of our ladies and young ladies coming in worship dressed like this? We don't want to do that because it is sexualizing. Our culture has done that, but you're sexualizing yourself. You're, as one woman said, you're advertising, and if it's not for sale, you shouldn't be advertising. And she's exactly right, what she said. So we want to teach our daughters that God looks at the beauty of the inside. Now, that doesn't mean you can wear whatever you want to, but He wants you to dress modestly and to have a humble and meek attitude, not one that says, look at me. And that's what this hypersexual thing is. Start your daughters young, teaching them about modesty so that as they grow, it's not a sudden change. It's something they've heard. I mean, even 4, 5, and 6 years old, they will understand, when you tell them we don't dress like that because it makes God sad. Be the example. If you're the mother, you've got to set the example. You can't go out in your shorts and halter and then turn around and tell your daughter, that would be immodest. Also, as being an example, don't stress about your hair and your nails and your body image. that's this sexual thing is how do we look to other people, and we're so concerned about it, it becomes our main focus. And our daughters, how many young girls are stressed about their weight, at 8 and 10 years old, but they've heard mama talk about it, and mama's so concerned because our culture says you're supposed to look like a Barbie doll, or something along that line. Talk to your daughters about the effect of the visual, the feminine body, and the visual effect that it has on men. God made them that way. Daddies may have to help in this, but if we bring it in to the context of the sacredness of marriage, I like to look at it that your purity in your body is a present that you give to your husband on your wedding night. And you don't display it for other men to look at before then. That's his present from you to him. That's the best present you'll ever give him. And you don't want to open that present early. So be careful of what you allow your children to watch, what you watch on TV. Don't be watching Dancing with the Stars. I mean, that to me is basically pornography in motion. It really, really is. A lot of the shows are like that. So know what your children are watching and help your daughters to understand that Christians don't do that. We just don't. We're just not that way. And it's okay to not be that way.
Yes. Well, I think we have time for just one more question.
Okay, which one you want?
If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Um, God takes care of his own, so quit worrying about so many things that you can't control. I worried about if the kids would get sick, or if my husband lost his job, or, what were we going to do with this and do with it. And it's wasted energy and wasted time. So really let your faith grow to where you can walk away and say, God's going to take care of me. I know he will. And whatever the situation is that you're in, if it's a difficult one, also this too shall pass. I don't know how many times I've said that. And try to live one day at a time. Don't borrow trouble. Don't borrow trouble. Let God take care of it. Is that okay?
Yes, that was wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today. I feel like I'm going to have to watch this video 5 times again and take down all sorts of notes. I just appreciate all of the wonderful advice that you've given us. Thank you.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I hope it's been helpful.